Yes, good morning children. I welcome you all to today's video class. In today's video class, you are going to learn the important landscape of the desert. This is the third supplementary chapter. Okay, before to explain in detail the desert, I would like to say a few words about the land and the land masses. Okay children, then you can easily understand the desert. You know that different kinds of landscapes and land masses. If you go through the atlas what you have at your home, or if you have a glance at the globe which we have in our school, you can find out the different shapes, kinds of land masses. Generally the experts of geography divides into two types land masses. One is water bodies covered by water, and another one is mere land masses, terrestrial areas. Among all the total available land on the earth, 71% is covered by water bodies and 29% is a mere land masses available. Okay, water bodies covered by seas, oceans, rivers, ponds and lakes also. And land masses, you know that total available lands, forests, mountains, hills and deserts. So they constitute land masses. These constitute water bodies. So among all these land masses, in today's class, you are going to learn more and much about desert. What is deserts? What are the kinds of deserts? What are the salient features of deserts? Everything I will explain one by one. Okay children? Yes. See, the largest and the biggest deserts in the world. I want you all to know such things. I have written here, I have given you the name of the deserts in such an order. The largest desert in the world, Antarctic desert, followed by Atacama desert, and followed by Sahara desert, Gobi desert and all other deserts which you know, Thar deserts, so many deserts, you know that. You might have learned the structure, landscape of all these deserts in the geography. And if you go through the atlas, you can find out all these things. Okay children, next I will explain what is desert, what are the structures of deserts. Okay children, closely follow me. Okay, before that, I would like to show you the picture of a desert. See, this is a picture, aerial picture taken, see, that desert, the Sahara desert. See how nice it is, fully covered with sand, a large terrestrial area covered with sand. This is called the desert. Okay, so this is a Sahara desert. This picture is taken from the space, that is aerial photography. Okay, fine children. See, and people are living in different regions. You know that. People are living in different regions. Some are living in such regions covered with forest. Some people are living in such regions surrounded by hills. These peoples don't know what is desert. How is it? So, actually speaking, what is desert? It is endless stretch of sand, a land of sand. What is desert? What is desert? An endless stretch of sand. This is called, that is no rainfall, a region which has totally covered with sand. That region is called desert. So, simply you can say desert is a vast stretch of land fully covered with sand. Vast stretch of land fully covered with sand. That region is called desert. A desert may have too hot, maybe too hot or too cold. A desert may be too hot. A desert may be too hot or too cold. So it is another definition for deserts and the nature of the climate prevailing in the desert. And some people say that there is no rainfall. Yeah, scanty rainfall. No rainfall in the desert areas. Here and there, now and then, they may have a little bit of rainfall. So show us like that. Scanty rainfalls. And no vegetation grows here. No vegetation. No vegetation grows. And the climate is very dry. And very hot and waterless. That's very important. Waterless. And then no shelter here. No shelter. Okay. So these are all the general significance, general features of a desert. So desert is a vast stretch of land fully covered with sand. Okay, and then a desert may be too hot or too cold. There is no rainfall at all. There is no vegetation grows in the desert. The climate prevailing in the desert is very dry and hot, very hot. In the daytime it is very hot, in the night it is biting cold, very cold. And waterless, this area is identified by waterless area, and then there is no shelter. So these are all the general significance of a desert. But the desert is a beautiful place. It is a home of variety of people, animals and plants, and they have learned to live in hot and dry conditions. One more thing I would like to say, children, if you ask an ordinary person, or if you ask educated or uneducated, generally people have an opinion that desert is a land of no animal and no plant, but it is not always correct. If you generally ask the people, let me explain. So these are all the general features of a desert. What's a desert? Desert is a vast stretch of land covered with sand. A desert may be too hot or too cold. A desert is a place where there is no rain at all, no rainfall. No vegetation grows here. It is very dry and it is very hot. It is a waterless region and there is no shelter. Okay, next screen. People say, general opinion of the people, deserts is a land of no animal. Desert is a land of no animal. Desert is a land of no animal, no plant. No animal, no plant. But it is not always correct. You can find some animals in the desert. They have the habitat of living in such a hot climate. And you can find some plants also in the desert. Okay, so deserts are important habitat for many species of animals. Some rare species of plants are also found in the desert. Important habitat. Desert is an important habitat for some animals. These animals are living in the desert. They have the adaptation for the climate prevailing in the deserts. Okay, they have such a adaptation. And then some rare species of plants, some rare species of plants are also found in the desert. Plants and animals of desert can survive on less water. That is the very peculiarity of these animals. So suppose if you compare the animals living in the desert with other animals living in other areas, animals living in other areas need more water for their survival. But the animals living in the deserts don't need that much water. They can live on the scanty water. They can live on less water. In the same manner, the plants found in other areas requires more water for its growth. But the plants, the desert plants, can survive on less water. What are all that? There is no shelter in the desert, especially. See the desert plants. Desert plants. Enlist. What plants are generally found in desert? Desert plants. See, I'll give you a list of desert plants. Cactus and shrubs. Cactus, shrubs, aloe vera and aloe vera. These plants are also found in the deserts and aloe vera plants. See, cactus, shrubs and aloe vera plants are also found in the deserts. Therefore, they are generally called desert plants. You know the desert animals? Desert animals. What are all the animals living in the desert? I will enlist it. The desert habitat is a home to variety of animals. It's a habitat. As a home to variety of animals. They have adapted, these animals have adapted to survive in harsh and dry climate. They have such a capacity to live in that place. Unless otherwise, these animals cannot survive in such a hot climate. And see, foxes. They are living here. Beetles. They are also living in the desert. Camels, the sheep of the desert, generally it is called the sheep of the desert, snakes and lizards. So these animals are very peculiar to the deserts. They have the capacity to survive in harsh and dry conditions. So they are called desert animals. These plants also have adaptation. They can survive or they can grow in less water. They can grow on less water. Okay, I will show you the picture, children. See, already I have shown you the desert. The surface of the desert fully covered with sand. And then see the sheep of the desert. Camel. You can find the camels are used by the people, those who are living in the desert and those people who has to use deserts. Sometimes they can go, they have to cross the deserts to reach the other places for business and all other purposes. At that time they use camels. They sit on the camel's back. They can load the camels with the heavy luggages. It can easily carry all these luggages and it can easily crosses the desert. So with the help of the camels, people used to cross the deserts. Therefore, it is called the sheep of the desert. Camels are called ships of the desert. See here, one who loaded the camel with his luggages. So it carries on easily. And I will explain later why we call this camel as a sheep and what are all the adaptation it had. Okay, fine. See, then some of the plants. See, desert plants. I have given here the list of desert plants. Cactus, shrubs, aloe vera. See the picture. Here you can find all sorts of plants that are living, they are growing in the deserts. So they have the drought resident variety. They are called drought resistance power. They have. So they can live on scanty water. They can live in, they can survive, see, in the hot and dry conditions. So they have such an adaptation. But if we compare these plants with the plants found in other areas, It is very difficult because other plants living in other areas require more water, but these desert plants don't require that much water, so they can grow with less water available on the deserts. Okay, next let me explain. During daytime, what about the climate prevailing in the desert? During daytime, the climate is extremely hot, and the night the climate is extremely cold. Two extreme climates are prevailing. I will enlist one by one. See. Yes, extremely hot climate, day, extremely hot, night, extremely cold. So during the daytime, it is extremely hot, but in the night it is extremely cold. And why this variation of temperature and dryness are distinct features of these deserts? Variousness, that's important. Variations of temperature and dryness. Variation of temperature. Temperature varies. The prevailing temperature in the daytime is totally different from the prevailing temperature in the night. This is called a variation of temperature. It is another significant feature of this deserts. Dryness. Totally dry area because less water. No water at all. Distinct features of these deserts. The moisture of humid climate is missing in desert. Humid climate and moisturous air. You cannot find such things. Moisture. So the humidity in the air is called moisture. So when the humidity is more in the air, you can have cool air. The air becomes so cool. But in the desert, there is no chance for such things. Though the moisture of the humid climate is missing in the desert. Due to lack of this, blanket desert lands heat up rapidly as in the daytime, as well as cool off rapidly at night time. Okay, so that's very important. And these how these animals and plants adapt to such a harsh and dry climate. So the climate is not prevailing. All the climate, the variations of temperature is another significant feature of this desert. During the daytime it is extremely hot. During the night time it is extremely cold. And the humid climate and moisture in the air is not at all plenty or not at all there in the desert. So that is the reason that's cause for dryness. That is why daytime is experienced by heavy hot, extremely hot, and the night time is experienced by extremely cold. So heat up rapidly as well as cool off rapidly at night. Okay, then next, camel. You know that is the sheep of the desert. Camel also sweat very little and can bear high body temperature. But such a peculiar adaptation, such a peculiar is a notable thing. So it has such an adaptation to live in the desert areas. They can bear the high temperature. Camels and all other animals living in the deserts. So they can bear the high body temperature and they can sweat very little. Adaptation. Bearing high body temperature. Bearing high body temperature. That's one of the important adaptation. And then sweat very little. Sweat very little. So little sweating. So it prevents the evaporation of the water content in the blood. Because the bodies of camels are different from our bodies. We, unlike camels, have to sweat to keep our bodies cool and maintain the appropriate temperature. But they, without having much sweat, they can maintain their body temperature. The animals, those who are living in the desert. And small desert animals hide in underground burrows. This allows them to escape the extreme desert temperature. Small animals. See, really they have learned to live in such a harsh climate. Mostly these small desert animals, underground burrows. Underground burrows. See, mind the spelling. So they can go and hide themselves in such a underground burrows. What benefit they can get from hiding themselves in these underground burrows? This allows them to escape from the extreme desert temperature. So they can keep themselves away from the extreme temperatures prevailing outside or on the surface of the land. Furthermore, these animals get water as per their equipment from plants and the moisture of meats. When they are hiding themselves in the underground burrows, they can easily get they have special organs. With the help of such things, they can absorb or suck the water from the plants. And sometimes they can get water even from the moisture of meats also. So that adaptation they have to live in such an extreme hot climate. Desert plants. What are the adaptations? The desert plants. This is the adaptation of the animals. So once again I would like to remind the children. So they can bear high body temperature. Almost all the animals, those who are living in the deserts, have the resistance power, and the skin and other structure of bodies have given them the power to bear high body temperature, and they are not sweating very high, they are sweating very little only, to avoid or to prevent the evaporation of the water from the body. And more than that, some small animals hide themselves in the underground burrows so they can keep their body cool, and they can get the water from the nearby plants, and they can get the moisture of, and fish also, moisture of their meats. Okay, then what are the special adaptations the plants of the deserts have? Let me explain. You know that the plants which grows in the desert, plants like cactus, they are able to store water. Plants, cactus, they can store more water. They can store more water. This is a special adaptation. Thanks to their thick stems, such plants lack deep roots. Hence, they absorb rainwater because they are very close to the surface. See, the creation of the God is a wonderful one. Cactus, like many other desert plants, are there. They don't have deep roots, and the roots are found on the surface level. So they can easily absorb the scanty rainwater. There they have rain, one very rare rainfalls only. they experienced, or the rainfall is very scanty. So when the water, just rainwater falls on the surface of the land mass, they get evaporated. Before that, the roots of these plants just absorb the rainwater, because the roots of these plants are found on the surface level. They don't have any deep roots, and they have thick stems. They have thorns also. So these special things have prevented the evaporation of the water. So they are close to the surface. Variations of temperatures is another thing. So a desert is a generally place without water and vegetation. That is a popular belief. And see, some special adaptations these animals have, some special adaptations the plants also have. So with the help of such special adaptations, they can survive in the desert. Even the extreme hot, even the extreme cold doesn't affect them. So a desert can be a beautiful place of home of many peoples. They can be beautiful place of many animals and plants. So when it rains, desert flower blooms. See, that's important. When it rains, desert flower starts to bloom. So it's a beautiful things happening often in the deserts when they have just rainfall. All living things, including plants and animals, need water to survive, no doubt. But desert creatures and plants require less water than green land plants. That is the special things. Note the things to be noted. The major feature of all desert is dryness and variation in temperature. Very important thing. These 2 points you have to keep in your mind. The major feature of all desert is dryness and variation in temperature. Temperature is not always uniform in desert. Since there is no moisture in the air, the desert heats up rapidly during the day and also cools off rapidly at night. Deserts have their own importance. Yeah, they are part of nature's plan. One should not call them useless. We are not supposed to call them as useless. And next I am going to explain oasis. Very important thing. What is oasis? Okay, let me explain. You can find oasis in the middle of the desert. An oasis is a small patch of vegetation surrounded by deserts. An oasis is an area made fertile by a source of fresh water in an otherwise dry and arid region. Oases are irrigated by natural springs or other underground water sources. So, oasis is a fertile area in a desert. We can call oasis is a fertile. Oasis is a fertile area in a desert. Fertile area in a desert. So they can get water from the natural springs and or other underground water sources. You can find some good plants in the desert area, in the oasis. And oasis is a place in a desert where water comes up to the surface from deep underground. Trees and other plants grow around in oasis. An oasis is a lush green area. Simply you can say an oasis is a lush green area. In lush green area, here you can find some good plants. They can get water from the underground water sources. Sometimes they can get water from natural springs also. In the middle of the deserts, you can find centered around Natural springs are a well found in historically in such areas. Let me show you a picture. How nice it is to see the picture. See, oasis. This is oasis. So oasis is a fertile area in a desert. See this picture. Oasis is a fertile area in a desert, and oasis is a lush green area. There you can see different kinds of plants, like Greenland plants. They can get water from natural sources, from the underground water. Sometimes they can get water from the natural springs also. So people, those are the travelers of the deserts, come and take rest under the cool shadow of the trees found in the desert. Many poets have talked much about this oasis. Okay. So, this oasis is the significant feature of a desert. Whenever it rains, the sight of the deserts can be quite rewarding, which is similar to that of any tropical garden. And then, sometimes the deserts are thrilled with the hills or mountains, not necessarily a flat land. Very important. Desert. So, an oasis is, let me recall, an oasis is a lush green area. It is found in the middle of the desert or in some part of the desert. It is a fertile area in a desert. There you can find natural vegetation, very good plants grows there. They can get water, or they are get irrigated. Oases are irrigated by natural springs or other underground water sources. Oasis is a fertile area in a desert. Oases also provide habitat for animals and plants. Very important. They provide habitat for many animals and plants. So the travelers of deserts can take rest, and they can get they take rest under the cool shadow of the trees found in this oasis. And another important feature of this desert is sometimes the deserts are thrilled with the hills or mountains. Deserts are thrilled with hills or mountains. With hills or mountains. So don't think, children, desert is always a flat land. Need not be like that. Sometimes they may have hills as well as mountains. You can find such things also in the desert. Deserts may consist of green plants and trees. Such plants and trees certainly provide comfort and shelter. So you cannot say that desert, there is no sheltering in the deserts. You can't just say like that. So green plants you can find. Though they are not like Greenland plants, they too have some plants. They are also green plants. They give you habitat for many animals. These trees certainly provide comfort and shelter. Furthermore, deserts can also consist of springs, natural springs. They are all. A desert is a hot region, but it also can be cold region like Ladakh. Ladakh is the best example for deserts, which there the climate is very cold. Sand dunes are mounds comprising of a heap of sand that tend to move and shift endlessly. I will show you what is it. See, sand dunes. See, the soft surface of the sand is carried away by the heavy storms and air, winds. They deposit all such sands in a particular place comprising of a heap of sand. Heap of sand that tend to move and shift endlessly. Everywhere, anywhere you can find such things. Very few plants are able to survive on the shifting mounds of the deserts. And let me explain other important features of a desert. desert is certainly gift of nature to everyone. No one can deny such a fact. As such, its importance is the same as that of other gifts of nature. You have to compare the deserts with other gifts of nature. We are provided, we are gifted with good things on the earth to live. That's the thing that earth is called a good planet to live. As such, so desert is certainly a gift of nature to everyone. As such, its importance is the same as that of the other gifts of nature like forest and ocean. We call them as gifts of nature. In the same way, we have to call deserts also gift of nature. Most noteworthy, one must not detest deserts, but rather should consider them as a blessing of nature. We have to consider the deserts as a blessing of nature. Okay, and then the major feature of all desert is dryness and variation in temperature. That's very important. And sand dunes, see, sand dunes and also called sand dunes. It can be called like that also. Some deserts are almost totally without water. Strong wind raises heaps of sands and deposits them as mounds. They are called sand dunes. And let me explain some other things. Some important, see. Small animals. The smaller desert animals do not drink water. Special feature. Small desert animals, they do not drink water. They burrow underground during the hot day and came out at night to eat. So they have such an adaptation. Some of them eat other animals. They get water they need from the moisture in the meat. Others eat plants and seeds and get the water they need from plant juices. They can get water from plant juices. Desert plants adapt themselves to the life. Cactus store water in their thick stem. Their roots are closer to the surface. It absorbs water from the little rain. And the moisture in the air acts like a blanket and to protect the earth's surface from the hot rays of the sun. That's important, children. The moisture in the air. So, the moisture in the air, it acts like a blanket and it protects the earth from the hot rays of the sun. So, in this way, deserts have some unique features which everyone should understand. Then only it will help you. So, it will help you to know and understand that a desert is a place equally beautiful as a forest. Let me sum up. Desert animals and plants adapt themselves to the climate. People in the desert use camels as we use cows. Deserts are famous for dates, the sweet fruit of desert. That's another important thing. Dates. Sweet fruit of desert. So a desert is generally without water and vegetation. Okay. And deserts are an important part of nature's great plant. They are not useless parts of that. You are not supposed to say. And deserts are beautiful with the desert plants and flowers. And the sight can be as rewarding as that of anything. Any tropical garden, whenever it rains. See, whenever it rains, you can find some desert plants starts to bloom. Desert plants starts to bloom when it rains. Desert plants bloom. So at that time, the total, if you look at the landscape of the desert at that time, it looked like tropical garden. Tropical garden. How it looked like in the same way, the desert surface also looks like during the rainfall, whenever it rains. So, let me sum it up, children. Desert. So a desert is generally without vegetation and water. Moreover, a desert may be too cold or too hot, but it is also a gift of nature. The desert is a story that revolves deserts. Many people perceive deserts as a land of sand, but that has the problem of scarcity of animals and water. However, deserts are important habitat for many species of animals and plants. A desert is generally without vegetation and water. Moreover, a desert may be too cold or too hot, and these are all the general features of a desert. Many people hold the opinion that a desert is nothing more than an endless stretch of land. Furthermore, people have the impression of deserts that they are waterless, hot, sheltering less. So people hold a negative opinion about deserts, but that is not correct always. In contrast to general opinion, deserts are beautiful places on earth. Furthermore, deserts are home to a variety of plants and animals. It is certainly a rare, precious sight when desert blooms exist as rainfall takes places. That's important. When rainfall takes places, the deserts becomes a rare and precious sight. No difference exists between the desert and the tropical land. Yeah, deserts are thrilled with the hills and mountains, but not necessarily a flat land. And oasis is similar to a green island. Green island is, of course, one can find in the middle of the desert. Desert may consist of green plants and trees. Okay, so very few plants are able to survive on shifting mounts. A desert is a hot region, but it also can be a cold region. So variations of temperature and dryness is a distinct features of the desert. Very good, children. So you have learned today more and much about the desert. So a desert is not just a sandy waterland. It may have mountain and even a green land called oasis. So all living things, including plants and animals, need water to survive. But desert creatures and plants require less water than greenland plants. Okay, so camels can do without water for days together. Suppose what is the special adaptation of the camel? Camels can drink water, a large quantity of water it drinks once one. So they can do without water for days together. The reason is that they sweat very little. But we human beings sweat when it gets hot. The sweat cools the body. Camels can stand high body temperature. The smaller desert plants also like that. So a desert is generally without water and vegetations. And last, what to say? I would like to, let me sum it up. I would like to show you the pictures. See, what is desert? A desert is a vast stretched land covered with sands. Actually, desert is a vast stretch of land fully covered with sand. Here you can find in this picture. So this is an aerial photography taken from the space, Sahara desert. And then what is the other feature? A desert may be too hot, may be too cold. A desert is generally without water and vegetation. There is no dwelling, there is no vegetation, there is no water. So you can say like that. But deserts are important habitat for many species. Some special animals are living in the desert, like camel. Some special plants are also living in the deserts. These animals and the plants have special adaptation to live in the deserts. With little water they can survive. There is other important features. And you can find oasis also in the middle of the deserts. And see some desert plants I will show you. These plants are found in the deserts. These plants can survive on little water. So they don't have any deep roots. They have thick stems. So when they have rainfalls, scanty rainfalls, immediately the roots absorb the water on the surface level, and the thick stems retain the water. It prevents the evaporation of the water. So such adaptations the plants of the deserts have the desert areas. And animals, see, camel also have a special adaptation. It drinks a huge quantity of water at one time, and they can live without taking water for many days together, because so they have special adaptation. They don't sweat much, so they can bear the hot temperature. That is a special adaptation the camels have in the desert. And you can find the oases, so Greenland in the middle of the deserts. There you can find some rare plants, so they can get the water from natural springs or from the deep water sources also. So you cannot just and other important features are only the variations of temperature and dryness. It is always found with the deserts. Distinct features of deserts, and less humidity in the air and the moisture is another important feature. And desert plants like cactus are able to store water, and animals also they can store water, and some animals hide in underground burrows, and this allows them to escape from the extreme desert temperature. A desert so is generally a place without water and vegetation, and if you go to the oasis, there you can see there are many rare plants. They can give you good comfort. You can stay there under the cool shadow of such plants. So who says that a desert there is no sheltering? Absolutely, it is not always correct. So, and they may be the habitat for many rare species of animals. They may be habitat for rare species of the plants also. And oasis is a small patch of vegetation. And finally, living things that are desert adapted are able to deal with the scarcity of water. And let me explain the important things. So what you can say, conclusion, deserts are an important part of nature's great plan. They are like the dense forest and deep ocean. They are hot and dry. They are not useless. Don't say like that. So deserts are always useful in many ways. They give sheltering to rare species of animals, to rare species of plants. And camel, that is called generally the ship of the desert. The desert story sends a powerful message about the value of deserts and why they should not be despised, but we have to thank God for giving us such a valuable treasure. The deserts are valuable treasure. A place that is not get rainfall, but though the place that get no rainfall, but it gives sheltering to thousands of animals and plants. And at the last, deserts are beautiful with the desert plants and flowers, and it can gives us a good sight, as rewarding as that of any tropical garden. So we have to thank God for such good things. And let me conclude the session with some pictures once again. So desert is a vast stretch of land with sands, covered with sands, and a camel is the only animal which can use to travel. Travelers can use this camel to travel on the hot climate of the deserts, and they can carry their luggages on the back of the camels, so they can easily cross the deserts. And some rare plants are found in the deserts. They can have some special adaptation, and you can find these oases also. So green lands available in the middle of the deserts. Thank you, children. So I hope all these descriptions and pictures help you a lot to understand the nature and the landscape of the desert and the prevailing climate of the deserts and the special adaptation of animals living in the desert and special adaptation of the plants living in the deserts. With all these things, just to go through the lessons and just to note down the key points. If it is possible, you better note down all these things in your classwork note. It will help you in future to prepare for the examination. Thank you, children. Have a nice day.